ego is no amigo. It'll never be a friend of yours. It'll never be an ally. It is something that is an adversary who will always try to take you out. It's the enemy within without you even realizing it. And when the dust settles and the smoke clears, you will find yourself by yourself.
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and
And welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo, and I'm glad to be back here with you guys today. And of course, I have another great episode for you guys that I've got prepared for you, and hopefully you'll be able to get a lot of value from this episode. And of course, today is going to be harped on leadership. So welcome to Leadership 101. And I am your professor, Mr. Carabello. Anyway, with that being said, before we start off, you already know the particulars, man. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Rolo Runs the City Podcast or at Rolo Runs the City Music, as well as TikTok at Rolo Runs the City _ also on X at Rolo Runs the City. And of course, we will not forget, of course, YouTube for the visuals, as well as Spotify. You go ahead and check out Rolo Runs the City. You're either going to run into the podcast or the music. Either or, feel free to enjoy both. And let's not forget, all things Rolo is, of course, RoloRunsTheCity.com. That is RoloRunsTheCity.com. But without further ado, man, let's go ahead and start this show off, man. Leadership 101. The real recognizing the fake, man. This was something that I really wanted to make sure that I touched on, because I don't believe I really touched on that. Of course, we always talk about leadership. However, we don't really talk about the other aspects of what people think leadership is. And absolutely what it does, it displays insecurity. So I wanted to make sure that I got this show put in front of you guys, because there's two aspects to leadership, to be quite honest with you. And I know you're going to say, well, that's not really leadership. No, it is leadership, but it's leading you down the wrong path. And many people end up in a situation where they're consistently trying to outshine somebody, or trying to basically tear somebody down in order to make themselves look good. Okay. So everybody wants recognition, but not everyone wants to build with people, unfortunately, right? Some people only know how to rise by stepping on others. And it's absolutely unfortunate, because you got so many people who throw what they say, quote unquote, shade on folks. So then that way they can go ahead and shine bright. And it's unfortunate, because at the end of the day, what we need to understand is, community is what allows everybody to flourish. I mentioned this in past episodes, how we're actually not self-made. No one is self-made. You cannot do anything without the support of others. That's whether people support you and they go ahead and they support your products, or they support your talent, or they support your business of any kind, or they support you in your community. They help and support you and your children on trying to become successful. This is a collective. And unfortunately, you got many people who don't see things in that fashion. And they should, but they don't. But that's just is what it is, okay? And the difference between leadership and attention seekers, okay? Like, this is really big. Attention seekers' traits are to compete with everybody else when there's no competition taking place. Okay. They interrupt chemistry on something that's working. Like they always say, the old adage is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. And also, their ego oversteps boundaries. And I wanted to mention this because it's absolutely important for us to understand that I've mentioned this early on in the podcast when I started doing my podcasting. Ego is no amigo. And this is absolutely true. That's actually a term that I got from the Hall of Fame NFL tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think he played for the Falcons as well, Tony Gonzalez. He, excuse me. He mentioned, he said, ego is no amigo. And it's true. Ego is no amigo. It'll never be a friend of yours. It'll never be an ally. It is something that is an adversary who will always try to take you out. It's the enemy within without you even realizing it. And when the dust settles and the smoke clears, you will find yourself by yourself. And it won't be because it's like, oh man, I'm such a great asset of what I'm doing. And, my grind just helped me make it. And that's not going to be the case for many people. Okay. And the reason why I say that, man, is because you got so many folks who consistently cut people from under, cut people's legs from under them, step on their toes, using them so they can climb the corporate ladder. I mean, it's crazy, man. But I understand that people say that it's a dog eat dog world, and it's a very cutthroat business, and any venture you get involved in when you're working with other people. But at the end of the day, I do believe in the laws of reciprocity. So therefore, I'm not going to take part in any of that rhetoric because it's just not something that's going to benefit you in the long run. It is what it is. At the end of the day, when you're consistent with who you are and what you do, and this goes on both sides. If you're consistently, a butthole, like that's just who you're going to be. You know what I mean? That's who you are. It doesn't matter whether if you have no money or if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, either or, like, money's just going to highlight more of who you are anyway. So, that goes without being said, right? But anyway, with leaders, right? A leader can walk into a room and elevate anyone without making themselves like, I mean, understand this, without making anyone, feel like they're beneath them. You know what I mean? There's so many people that just because someone walks into the room and they have that aura about them, right away, there's a lot of people who are very insecure that say, oh man, this person thinks they're better than me, this, and that. No, they're just confident in who they are. Okay. And one thing about a person who can actually elevate those around them, you got to think about it, right? They don't make it about themselves. Okay. Real leaders uplift their community, they uplift everyone around them. Um, they get everybody to buy into their vision. So then that way they can all achieve a common goal. A lot of times I like to piggyback on sports, business. Obviously, you guys know the goats of the goats. They raise everybody's level up. People will say, "Oh, well, they did it because of so and so. They did it because of so and so." Like, you hear that a lot about Jordan and about all these other great athletes, and it's not so much that they were that guy who made everything happen. But what people do need to understand is those leaders knew how to rally people around them to actually become very successful. It's very, common in business as well. When people buy into a vision, they're able to actually execute on a high level. When people don't buy into a vision, you're unsuccessful. In business, your company's just a revolving door. People getting cycled in and out, which is actually not a good culture if you're trying to build something sustainable for the long term. Okay. But authenticity is always revealing itself. Okay, so character is leaked out through action, and your actions need to match your words. So you can't be a person who overpromises and underdelivers. You just can't do that. You can't be an overpromise person and just underdeliver. I've ran into many of these people many a times. I personally, it bothers me whenever I'm doing business or whether if I'm working with somebody like that. And the reason why is because then it's almost like their performance is attached to my reputation because of the fact that it's not so much I'm co-signing what they're doing. However, they are involved with what I have going on. Therefore, now it's like, okay, well, now you're tied to me. And that's why I'm very selective on who I decide to like do work with. I mean, that's even, whether podcasting, whether doing the music stuff, heck, even training, you know what I mean? With, my running. A lot of times I do train and I work by myself. And it's not to say that I don't like to be around people, but I can hold myself to a high regard. I don't want to be the type of person that holds other people to a high regard and to the same standard that I have, and they don't execute on that premise. Because what happens is you end up becoming, I mean, very disappointed in somebody else's action, but you have to understand, you have to respect people and expect them to be who they are, not what you expect them to be through your eyes. So I've learned that very slowly, right? Because I will not lie, I still hold people in a high regard, even if they don't see the greatness in themselves. I always try to do what I can to get them to see that vision. But a cop out all the time for many people is they'll see how a person tries to operate, who tries to execute on a high level, and they'll say, well, that guy's a psycho, or that female's crazy, or they're totally just obsessed. And what they feel is if that's going to give them the excuse on not trying hard. It's like, oh well, they're nut, they're on a whole nother level. And it's like, to be honest with you, we're all the same human being. No athlete is better than the common Joe. Uh, no common Joe is better than uh, a homeless person who's living out in the street who hit hard times. Okay. We've all been built the same way with the same factory install that we all have for I don't know how many millions of years that we've been walking the earth. Okay. We all know that we want to make sure that we're clothed, that we're fed, Lord willing, we have a roof over our head. We all execute the same way in reference to basic wants and needs when it comes to how we want to live as human beings. However, it's our habits that differentiate us. It has nothing so much to do with that person being a freak or that person is absolutely obsessed. Maybe they want stuff. Okay. And maybe you don't want anything. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, not everybody can go out there and, have a Fortune 500 company or, be on the cover of Forbes. Like, I get it, man. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't want all that responsibility. And I just want to go ahead and make sure that I'm living my best life. I just want to make sure I'm living simple. I have a roof over my head and I'm in a situation where I'm not so stressed out and I can maintain my living. My thing to you is what I will say is if you're living that way, there's not a problem with living that way. There's people that get up, they grind, they go to work and they come home and they live in the high heavens because of the fact that they were able to contribute at their job. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But if you're a person that wants more and you're complaining about your situation, but you're not doing anything about it, well, then that's where the problem lies. And that's character thing. So you want to make sure that you're as authentic as you can be. Okay. Fake people, man. If you're fake, if you're fake, you hear me? Jesus Christ. If you're fake, people can see right through your motives, and it's due to your inconsistencies. Okay. A lot of people are very inconsistent, to be quite honest with you. They'll be consistently inconsistent. And if you're a person who has ulterior motives, as opposed to being genuine and actually caring about a situation or caring about people or caring about your community, if you're a person who genuinely cares, that's something that you wear on your sleeve and you can actually execute and you can move forward knowing that you have the best of intentions in mind. Okay. But if you're a person who's just trying to be rah and actually act like you give a damn, but you're so inconsistent with what you do, you really don't care. And people will be able to see right through it. It's unfortunate. That's exactly what it is. But, what can you do, right? I mean, that's life, right? I mean, you just have to do the best that you can to execute on being as consistent as you can possibly be. One of the worst things that can happen to anybody who's in a leadership position is if that people are relying on you to execute, and it doesn't matter whether if you're in business, whether if you're on a team, or whether you're leading your family. They're looking at you and they're saying, okay, this needs to get done. What are we going to do? And you're the person in this leadership position and you don't have an answer for them. That's a problem. And it's because it's due to inconsistencies. You're not living aligned with your position. So I know me, I always think to myself, hey man, I'm the leader of my family. I'm the leader of this Rolo runs the city. I'm doing everything that needs to get done. So then that way, when they look at me for the answer, I can give it to them. Okay. But if you're a person that is trying to be rah rah and you're like, yeah, hey, everybody look at me, I'm an attention seeker. And somebody's like, okay, well, now that you got our attention, we need this to get done. And if you don't execute on that, it makes you look like a hypocrite. So you don't want to do that either. Okay. But like I say, folks, it is what it is. So we need to make sure that we execute a lot better on that. Okay. Excuse me while I take this wig. All right. Next on the docket, right? Okay. You got to stop climbing by pulling others down. I mean, this is just straight up, okay? People consistently always stepping on someone's toes. You're undermining people and undermining authority when you shouldn't be, as well as folks always trying to look important. I mean, you look at people's emails and they send this email and they pretty much have their damn resume right under their signature. It's pretty bad, right? Okay. Um, you know, Stealing moments or ideas from people, which is like absolutely horrible. I remember I was talking to my wife the other day about this about the Wayans brothers, right? We used to watch this show like all the time. We used to watch it on MTV2 and all that other stuff, right? And there's one episode, right, where Sean was working for like a jingle company, right? And and his homeboy put him on, right? And the dude was like, yeah, so if you want to go ahead and give me some of those great jingles, man, I'll go ahead and forward it to the boss. And then, that way, it could put you in a good light, right? But what the guy was doing was absolutely just stealing all of the jingles from Sean and taking the credit for himself. So when he found out about it, um, they told Sean, said, "Hey man, what you should do is since he's taking your ideas, why don't you set him up and just give him some just some really bad ideas, so then that way when he goes to give it to the boss, he'll look like a jackass, right?" So basically that's what happened, right? And I think it's absolutely funny. The reason why we talked about that is because you have so many people who try to take this, they want to chase the spotlight, and they want to have these moments. Even when the moment is not about them, they still want to make it about them anyway, right? Then on top of that, like you're trying to take people's idea. And look, I have no problem with people wanting to collaborate. Look, if you want to take my idea, like whatever, like it is what it is, right? Like you can't live off of that for too long because the fact that, in fact, it's funny, man. I used to have a guy that used to like follow me on Instagram, right? And I would put out content, right? And this dude would be driving in his car and he would be like saying the same stuff that either I said on Twitter or I was said in a video maybe like a week prior, and he would just kind of like twist it to like cater it to his message. And I was like, this MF right here is over here stealing my ideas and putting it out on his own platform. And I just thought it was funny, right? So, this guy, he had like 6 or 7,000 followers, but he was following like 6 or 7,000 people. So it wasn't like he was a person of influence. He almost did like at the time where follow for follow was very common, during social media early on. And obviously that's how he built his not so much his supporters, but just like his numbers in reference to like people who are following, which in reality, I mean, to me, it's like that's like scoring 30 points a game in basketball, and the guy you're supposed to be guarding scores 28. So really, you got like a net two. We always talk about it all the time. I don't mean to crap on Carmelo Anthony all the time about that. So, but man, it is what it is. Great scorer, by the way, but would not play defense. But anyway, my whole point is that the guy would put this information out and like he would get minimal likes, and because the fact that people knew they could see right through him where they're like, dude, this dude's not really authentic, you know? And I realized once I stopped putting stuff out, next thing you know, this dude stopped putting out videos. That's how come I found this out. At first I was like, nah, this gotta be coincidental. And then I'm like, oh hell no. know. You know what I mean? And then the funny thing was that he put out a self-published book and everything. So who knows how many things I said where that guy ended up putting some stuff in it. But he probably went down my timeline. This was prior to me like revamping my Twitter slash X account, where I just kind of like deleted a whole bunch of stuff and just kind of really started over. But I just thought to myself, I said, wow, it's crazy how people are, man. They will do anything, cutthroat and all, just to try to get to the top. But the thing is, people don't realize. They say, oh man, there's over 8 billion people in this world, man. You'll be all right. Dude, you know what? You steal enough stuff from people and try to take their ideas and their moments, man. It all catches up to you. All those bridges are burned. So I hope you plan on taking over the island, man, because, dude, you ain't got no boats either. So do with that what you will, man. But if your success is required disrespecting those around you, that's not leadership, man. That's insecurity during Halloween, man. That's a costume. I mean, straight up. It really is. You know, you can't act like you're doing something in one way and then you're actually the other way. There's a whole bunch of people, man, who are absolutely insecure on who they are and what they do, but what they try to do is, it's almost like they want to wave their hand over here, but they got something in the back, on the other hand. So then that way you're not paying attention to what's really going on. So there's a lot of insecurities that come into play. And I always talk about all the time where if you're an extrovert, you can't really be a person who tries to be, I'm sorry, excuse me. If you're an introvert, that's what I meant to say. If you're an introvert, you can't try to disguise yourself to be an extrovert, because people can tell whether you're uncomfortable around folks or you're just not being authentically yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe a lot of introvert people can actually communicate well, and they do well in their surroundings that they're accustomed to, and they can actually even rise to the occasion around folks that they don't know. So that's not like a thing that's a knock on anybody. What I'm basically saying is a lot of introverts who try to act like they're extroverts, and you could clearly see they're uncomfortable and they're not facing that reality. Well, it's October 31st. It's Halloween for you, buddy. And you just take off the mask, man. Go home, go to sleep, take a shower, do whatever you're gonna do, man. But try to wash off the shame of you not being who you authentically are. And like I said, people can pick that up very quick. Okay. True leadership is empowering others, collaborating with others, and checking your ego at the door, man. I mean, you have to really think about this. There's a lot of people, right, who, when they're collaborating with others, they're not intimidated. Like, I'm, for one, am not intimidated by anybody who has a great idea. Say, hey, man, we should roll with that. And I have no idea we're giving people the credit that they deserve. So then that way they're recognized as well, because like I said, this is it takes a village, and that's just not just for little kids, man. I mean, this is for every individual that lives on this earth. It takes a village, man. Right. So I'm very like, hey, so-and-so had a great idea. I think we're going to roll with this, man, because, he or she said that we should be doing this, and that. I'm in total agreement. I'm wondering why I never thought about it myself, but I'm glad that he or she was able to chime in on it. Right. And I'm all for it. But I'm going to tell you this at the same time, right? Whenever we have ideas and we're collaborating, and I know if it's coming from a person that's letting me know, hey, I think we should do this, I'm all for it. I think it sounds good. Hey, whatever you need, let me know. But you're spearheading the project. Okay. You're not going to mention this to me and then you're going to disappear. And then I'm taking over your idea, but you still want credit for your idea, but you don't want to put in the work towards the idea that you brought to the forefront. We're not doing that. Okay. So I'm very, very meticulous when it comes to things like that, where it's like, if you have a great idea, let's execute on it. Anything you need from me, we'll make it happen. Okay. So, and it's the same thing for me as well, because there's times where, and like I said, I don't care about credit. Like, as long as we get some stuff done, it is what it is. Right. If I'm bringing something up, I'm going to say, hey, I don't want to try to take over somebody's project, but I do know that I did bring up this idea. So whatever you need from me to do, I will make sure that I get done. So then that way they understand, like, okay, this guy's not just having diarrhea of the mouth. He actually wants to bring value to the situation. He did bring up the idea. He's not shying away from it. So, because it's real easy for somebody to bring some stuff up, right, and not have any follow through. So let's just be quite honest about that. Okay. But that's just basically how I execute. And I'm not saying that that's how the world should execute, but if you want to have a system in place and you want to make sure that there's some sort of a standard operating procedure on how you do things, I mean, I would recommend you looking at things in that fashion and start, taking, some personal inventory on it. Okay. But, people obsess over recognition, man. They really do. They want to be recognized. Hey, look at me, look at me, Hey, I'm the one that did this. I'm the one that did that. And I will be telling you this too. I know for myself, there are times that I'm like, hey man, I did do that, because when people, I'll put it to you like this, a lot of people sometimes need a reminder of like, hey, I'm not here just sitting on my hands. Like I'm the reason why this thing goes. You know, I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that because sometimes people around you may not know your self-worth. It's like, and they don't recognize your self-worth until you're no longer there to do the necessary. They're like, oh man, that's what he or she used to do. Yeah. Hello. Those are the invisible things that you didn't know happened. And now that it's happening, you're like, why is this not getting addressed? Oh, that's because that's what they need to do. Look, man, if you got a husband, for my ladies out there, you got a husband, he he cuts his grass. I mean, every week, every other week, whatever, has everything maintained, right? You say, I don't want to deal with this guy no more. You put his ass out, right? Then you got crabgrass all over. You're wondering why the weeds are just growing out and the bushes haven't been trimmed. And, normally all this stuff that used to be very pristine by your fence line is no longer looking that way because you have trees and limbs hanging over and leaves and just looks like crap. Well, you know what? Your husband was probably like the main landscaping guy to make it happen. Okay. And landscaping ain't cheap no more, man. If you want to get some stuff done, you're probably going to pay about $200 a pop. And if you're going to get any more extracurriculars like, hedge trimming and, removing tree limbs and stuff like that, that's going to be an additional upcharge. You guys know that. I don't mean to go ahead and just get into landscaping and stuff like that, but that's just a perfect example of the consistency that somebody brings. So just be careful of, of your husband cutting that grass and then you want to put him out, I say that's the best landscaper you may have. But anyway, man, I ain't trying to get off topic, but my thing is, man, you really got to just stay authentic, man. You got to build it, you got to respect and you got to revere people, man, because we don't do life alone. And like I said, man, I think it's absolutely important to hold on to your community and support your community as your community supports you. You can't step on people, man. You can't cut people's legs from under them. You can't undermine folks so then that way you could try to look good, try to get on top because it's only going to last you but for a little bit. Okay? When you're authentically you and this is who you are, there's nothing that you can actually, there's nothing no one can take away from you. Okay? I recall one time I was working this job. It's probably about 15 years ago. I was working at this job and this guy was like, he was a temp and he came and he was like, bro, why you working so hard, man? Like, man, you're already on. So pretty much telling me like, I already got the job. Like I wasn't a temp. I was one of the, regular employees there and he was a temp and he was telling me, well, why you working so hard, man? Like you already on. Like, it's like, it has nothing to do with I'm already on. So I get to slack off. Like this is the person that I am. Like I'm all about getting the work done. They're paying me for a service. I'm providing that service. Okay. In fact, I provide a little extra for what they're paying me. Right. And that's okay because at the end of the day, it wasn't about the money that was made. It was about the character that was getting built within myself. So, needless to say, this Joker wasn't worth much. Had a rap sheet probably longer than freaking goddamn, an extra stretch limousine. Who knows, right? But he would tell me things like that, and I would just tell him. I say, "No, man, this is just how I work." And it wasn't like I was trying to make anybody look bad, or just be in a situation where he was just baffled by the way I worked. And I told him, I said, "Hey, man, at the end of the day, like, I'm trying to be a good representation not only for my family, but I want to show at the time my daughter. I said I want to show my daughter what her dad is about. So then that way, when eventually she gets older, she carries the same mindset so she can go ahead and execute the same way and also look the same in a partner that she decides to spend the rest of her life with." Okay. I don't want her to be with some lazy ass who's not doing anything, who doesn't bring any value to society, who does zero when it comes to being a contributor to the society, to life. And that's something that I wanted to make sure that I showed my family what I'm about. So that's what it is, folks. Well, anyway, this was a good episode. Very therapeutic. You know how it goes, man. Because at the same time, I try to spit some knowledge, but I also want to make sure that, you know, people can actually grasp what's going on, because there's so many people out here that are running on autopilot, man. It's unbelievable. I mean, y'all wake up like y'all got hit with a frying pan. Y'all go to work, driving through the street half asleep, putting people in danger, not to mention yourself. And there's so many people that are not taking any accountability for their own shortcomings. Okay. Like I say it all the time, man. Success is built on daily habits, and so is failure is built on daily habits. And just as simple as somebody getting extremely jacked because they put in the work every day and they diet properly. And it's the same thing for the guy who decides he wants to go ahead and eat a honey bun and not do anything. And like I said, both of those things compound over time. Nobody just wakes up a failure or successful overnight. It happened with a series of events. Anyway, look, I'm out. But look, y'all take care. Godspeed. And I'm grateful for you guys. I appreciate the support. And always remember, baby, be the goat, never sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.